an airline breast of chicken along with the leg and the thigh, and we want to remove that right off of the carcass so that there's no cutting through the backbone like there is on a standard 8 cut. So we'll start with that. So once again, we have some nice fresh poultry. Okay, we'll start by trimming up anything. I've got a nice sharp boning knife ready to go. Okay, we're gonna start. I'm gonna start by taking my wings and I'm gonna turn them back. Okay, and that allows me to have a little more room to work on. Okay, so now what I'm looking to do is I've got the chicken on its back, okay, with legs facing out and wings underneath. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of this fat off around the neck bone. And what I'm looking to do first is I want to remove the wishbone, which it comes right up along the breast here. So what I'm going to do is I'll start with a simple cut down the middle so that I can see where the breastbone comes in. Okay, we'll just cut through the skin just a little bit. And I'm looking for the tip of the wishbone. And that way, when I find that, I can run down along the side. Okay, can use my fingers if I need to. Okay, and I see my bone right here, and this is where it meets the breastbone. So I'm just going to cut down through there, and I'm going to try to pull that out with my hand. Okay, I can run my finger along the two sides of the wishbone, and it just broke on me, and that's okay. So I'll pull that down, and I just twist it out, and I save that from my stock pot. Okay, I find the bone on the other side, run my finger down the side. If that's not working, I can always scrape it with my knife, twist, and pull. So now I've got my wishbone out. So the next goal, what I want to do is I want to remove my breast meat from the carcass. So I'm going to cut down along both sides of the keel bone. And what I want to do is I want to run the tip of my boning knife along the breastbone, keeping as much meat along the breast or off of the carcass as is possible. Now, when I get down to where the wing bone comes in, I want to make sure that I'm cutting around that I am leaving the wing bone on the breast. Okay? Now I'm just going to turn it because I find it a little easier to work this way. So once again, following the rib cage or the breastbone, I'm going to use only the tip of my knife, and I'm going to make nice, smooth cuts so that I keep it nice and smooth. So once again, I'm looking for where my wing bone comes in, and I want to make sure that I'm as close to the carcass as possible, and I want to cut through where the wing joint meets the breastbone, and I'll come through there. Okay, so now I've cut it off to the sides. Now I'm going to bring it back, and now I want to start to remove, again, that natural fat line between the leg and the breast meat, and I want to keep as much of that skin for my breast as possible, because that's what's going to protect the breast while it's cooking. Okay. So now that I've done that, I can start to come down along my bone there. and we're just going to remove as much of that meat as possible. So again, I have my breast along with the wing. Okay, come to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. So now I have two breasts, boneless except for the wing, which is there right now. And I want that so that I can create my airline breast. Okay? So now I'm going to turn my chicken over, and now I'm going to remove the leg and the thigh by following it as close to the backbone as possible, keeping as much meat on the breast as possible. And if you come right here where the breast is, where it meets the thigh, there is a piece of meat in there that we call the oyster. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my finger down underneath it, my thumb, and I'm going to try to keep that oyster onto the thigh. So now that I've done that, it's right here. It's this piece of meat right here, and it's extremely tender. It's the most tender cut. So now we're going to just follow our bone along the back. You see that I've twisted my thigh bone, so now I can see where it's coming so that I can cut straight across and leave myself with as much meat as possible on my leg and thigh. Now, the leg and thigh, again, we can cut it if we want into two separate pieces, and we could prepare legs and thighs, or we could bone out our leg and our thigh, and then we could truss it, stuff it, and then truss it, and we would have a ballantine. Okay? So we'll just leave that to the side. What you need to do for your ACF is to have the boneless chicken breast or the airline breast with just the drumette in there. Okay, so once again, we're going to come across, we're going to find that oyster meat. Just make sure that we come under there, which I've done. Cut along this bone. Okay, feel for where my joint is. Take that out from my stock. Okay, and I would trim this up, and that would be ready for service. Okay, now what I also want you to do is I want you to make sure that you're taking your chef's knife, and we want to cut our leg bone, okay, so that we have an area where our blood can be removed. So I'm going to cut it at the leg, and I'm also going to cut it at our joint where our thigh comes in. We'll just cut around that a little bit. Okay, I can see that. Remove that part of the breastbone. Save that for stock. And we'll just come right here. You can see the bone. And we're just going to take a small cut out of there, right through the joint. And that just gives us a place for our blood to come through. So there we have quartered leg and thigh. We could certainly separate that, okay? And we would want to do that for the ACF test, showing our different parts. So once again, we have the fat line that comes down the center between the two joints. I'm going to go closest to the leg, and it slides right through, nice and easy. So there is my thigh, Skin on, bone in. One thigh, one trimmed up leg. Let's do the same thing over here. Find my fat line. Okay. Good. Trimmed up leg. Okay. Again, we'll cut that right at the joint. And we'll do the same thing on our thigh so that we have a place for the blood to go. And you'll see that I use the heel of my knife and just come down a little bit off the heel. Okay. 2 legs, 2 thighs. Okay, we want to take our carcass now, and any meat that we can remove from the carcass that might still be there, we want to save this as usable waste. We can use that for soups. We can use it for stir fry. And I want you to clean up your carcass and make sure that you remove any extra meat that still might be on there. Okay, so now we've got the carcass. We'll save that for stock. Okay, so our next move is to create an airline breast. So we will start by trimming up our chicken breast. I'm going to remove the tenderloin underneath. I'll leave that there for you so you can see. We'll just trim up where the skin came out. And now what I want to do is I want to start to remove my wings. So the first thing I'll do is I'll take my wing tip off, save that for the stock bucket. Okay, now what I want to do to turn this into an airline breast is I want to start, okay, where the joint comes in to the breast, and I want to cut about a 1/2 inch up on the drumette, from the joint to the drumette. And what I want to do is I want to come up, cut through the skin, and then I want to cut around in a circle. And what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to cut all of the tendons that still might be connected to that drumette. Now, I'm right-handed. I'm going to hold the drumette in my left hand. With my right hand, I am going to bend the wing back. Okay, you should hear it crack, which it just did. And then what I'm going to do, as best I can, it's a tough chicken, but that will usually pull right out nice and easy. Okay, if it doesn't, we can use our knife and we'll cut it. But that, hopefully my second one will come a little bit easier than that one. So I'm just going to cut through there. So I have a wing that I can save, and then I have my bone now. So what I want to do is I want to cut through this joint so that I can allow the blood to come through. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to clean off, scrape off this bone completely, because the purpose of an airline breast is for the way it looks. So we certainly want to make sure that we scrape everything off of there with our knife and get that nice and clean. Okay, just okay, and that cleaned us off. So now I can just trim it up with my boning knife, and I end up with an airline breast of chicken where I have my drumette bone making a very dramatic presentation. Okay, so let's clean up a little bit, and we'll do that one more time. So once again, about a ½ an inch up on the drumette, cut around in a circle, cutting through all of the tendons. Scrape it a little bit, make sure that you cut through. Okay, once again, I'm going to hold the drumette in my left hand, bring it back, crack it off, and this was just a tough piece of poultry. Okay, but you can see how that one cleaned up much nicer, and that is what we're looking for, that nice clean bone. So again, I'm going to take my wing, cut the tip off. Save my wings. Okay, scrape off the bone. Okay, I'm going to cut just through the tip so that I have an area where the blood can come through. And the last thing that I'm going to do is remove my tenderloin and then just completely trim up my chicken of any fat that I don't want to render down. So once again, I have an airline breast that is skin on with just the drumette. Now if I wanted to, I could turn this into a supreme by removing the skin and removing my wing bone. But I want you to leave both in because for your final, you need to saute this airline breast and create a pan sauce to go with it. Okay? So once again, when you create according to ACF guidelines, what we're going to be looking for are 2 legs, 2 thighs, 2 airline breasts, 2 wings, the 2 tenderloins, any scraps, usable waste that you have, and then of course you want to keep it nice and clean and keep any carcass, part of the carcass that you can use for your stock. Okay? Any question on what you're going to do for your practical? Thank you very much.